Okay, this is number 3. It's different, as you can see, just in the corner there, different, slightly different, a bit more glamorous, I suppose, than this lady. But this, I haven't really done much to this after finishing it, because I like the sketchy kind of dirty almost feel about the way the charcoal was. It works well with this. The first one, I put a bit more effort into the first one. I might tickle this up in various places just to sort of get a bit more shape in it. I don't know until I'll look at all of them when I've done all of them. But yeah, this one is a little bit. This new latest one's a little bit more glamorous, I suppose. Still a which that was the one I just done. This one was the first one this morning. Let me just find it. There we go. That one. Right. Things need fixing on that. Not much need fixing on it really, but bits and bobs. Usually bits and bobs. And this one, like I say, is a bit more, you can see, it's a bit more like a Vogue character. She's got a leather hat. Not a bit colour matters like, but she's verging on a clown more than it's got an element of kind of a clown feel to it. But yeah, well, yeah, it's the jaw and and the fact she's white as well. It's very pale skin and obviously plenty of white makeup on. But it's clown-esque. That's where she looks like a clown because their eyebrows sort of go up like that. It's a very clown feel about it. But yeah, so same with before. This is the bit of charcoal that I was using to start with. And I started the last one with this. I'll start again with this one, but it's getting to a very strange shape. And when it's a funny shape, it's hard to hold it because you don't know where the marks are going to end up. It's one of those things where if you're working with something that's got a funny edge to it, you kind of expect a mark to come from one edge of it, but in fact it comes from another edge. So it's getting a bit like that. Add to that the fact that it's a weird shape. So normally I'm working with fairly straight, sort of pieces, and I'm trying to find a piece now. So it's normally fairly straight like that, right? I should put it just in front of the paper. I always think I hold it to the camera like that. But anyway, so it's normally that kind of straight. But this, because I wanted it to, in keeping with the the witch feel, that was the other piece I was going to use as well. That's not so difficult to work with. But we'll do it with this for now. Again, I'm like on the last one. I'm putting backgrounds on them when they run off the paper. It's okay. I mean, it's not a problem that they run off the paper in some way. But when they do, I just think that giving it a bit more of a context by putting a background of some kind in it, I just think it gives it a little bit more. Makes the way it runs off the paper a little bit more relevant. I'm doing the same as I've done this morning, just sort of mapping out the components somehow, finding the relationships, finding the alignments, just the dots thing. You can see, I don't really do the dots anymore. They've sort of progressed into this kind of scribble of shapes, but the thing for me is that it's an investigation. Now, for me, I always think it's like I'm trying to. I spend more time looking at the subject, and I'm just investigating where things are. They're quite close. One of the things I do is that I'll draw with the subject quite close to it. So I can kind of see the subject, the drawing out of my peripheral vision. So it's not a big, it's not a big stretch to actually glance across. So I'm more of a glancer than a squinter. You get people that talk about squinting. Or blurring. I think I glance more than either of those two things. I might do a little bit of the squinting and blurring, I suppose, to some extent, but more often than not, I'm glancing, which is kind of like the way an animator does. Glances from one to another, just flashing across from one to another to check the where things are. And I think that's probably where it is for me. That's where it sort of comes from. I'm just glancing across. I'm not sure I'm not taking it, in terms of like an animator does. I've not thought of it in that respect. It's just after somebody asked me about it, I kind of use that as an explanation as to why I do what I do. But it is definitely 100 miles an hour glancing. Somebody said, because sometimes you can see me glancing on the, when the camera's in a different angle. And somebody said, you spend a long time looking. I do. My eyes are flashing backwards and forwards all the time. And it's checking everything, checking distance. I just did it then, and I noticed, I consciously noticed what I was looking at, and I was looking at this distance here, and then the relationship at the corner of the mouth, in the middle of the eye, I'm doing that all the time. So it's just become a habit. It's a bit like when you drive and you're checking the mirror all the time. It's one of those kind of things, and I think that once you do learn, you get that habit, and you do learn to be constantly checking things. It works with everything. It's whether it's your painting or your drawing. The position of things, the colour of things, the tone of things. It's all about those sort of fleeting glances to check. And look at it in relation to everything else, because that's another thing as well. I tend to draw everything all at once, as you can tell. So because it's everything relates to everything, so to speak. These are not my words. I think that's Robert Enright. Again, I do quote that guy a lot, but it is everything does relate to everything. One of the things that the charcoal for me is this meandering thing. When it does it, I mean, this is doing it okay now. Sometimes charcoal doesn't do it. So, but when it does it, when it allows you to sort of meander and wander across the face, it's fantastic, because it's not there's no kind of sort of deliberation of drawing. There's none of that sort of effort that's required to make a mark, because it's just floating across the paper. That's one of the things that I say about charcoal. If you buying charcoal, make sure it's the kind of charcoal that doesn't require any effort to make a mark, because one of the things is that you will need to control the values and the tonal balance, and it may be fine increments of tone, and if it requires any effort to apply the tone, the charcoal, to manipulate the tones, then it changes the way that you work, because you're suddenly having to exert pressure to it. The marks become less fluid. It's all the obvious things. And the first one we did this morning, that was the case. Once I got things in the right place, that was the case with that. Because I'd got to create something that's quite dark. This is not so dark, so I don't have that feeling that I'm going to have to apply. I mean, it is dark here, for instance, and then up under a hat there, but I'm not feeling as though I've got a great deal of pressure to apply to it to create a dense colour, a dense tone. But like I say, you really want charcoal that will apply, and the tonal levels as well. You've got to have charcoal that'll cope with all kinds of tonal levels. You don't really want to be swapping around and using a different density for this and a different density for that. You might as well, if you're going to do that, you might as well use graphite, because that's exactly what you're going to do with graphite. So, but the beauty of charcoal is you don't have to do that. You know, the charcoal that you use should be capable of creating a range of densities, but not all of them do. I mean, some of them are pretty rubbish. You know, you get the compressed stuff, that's just a nightmare. I mean, I've used compressed and done demos of compressed just to prove and just to show what you have to do, because you got to change the way that you apply the tones. You've got to go more graphite, really. It feels more graphite when you're using the stuff that doesn't blend easily or isn't smooth. You've got to go and make it look. You've got to use the graphite techniques of lots of hatching and stuff. But yeah, it's if you get a piece that is going to do what this is doing now, then enjoy it for the moment that it does it, because it's not always going to do this. You're going to be back in the having to apply a little bit of pressure to the for marks to appear. But whilst it'll do that with no effort, then enjoy it. So it's I think it's one of the main things about working with charcoal is that the two main things is that it does its own thing. It does do its own. I mean, I think people think they've got control over charcoal. They have if you're using, sort of brushes and stuff like that, and that's a different kind of drawing with charcoal, because it has the ability to create super smooth tones and almost photographic level, sort of blending and things like that. Then people are drawn to that kind of production with charcoal. But it's not the only way to use charcoal. I don't think it's probably the right way to use charcoal. I think the right way is to go with the way that it creates a kind of, I don't think it's sketching as such, but it does create a very lively kind of tonal density, tonal range that's not really. It's not comparable to graphite, although this is why people have problems when they come from charcoal to graphite, because you're not going to get the control you get unless you're going to do, as I said, you're going to go through using the various densities like you get with nitrum and all that, which is really just graphite, really working in graphite, but you can call it charcoal. But the sort of side effects, particularly I suppose working in this way, which is the sort of a more exploratory kind of scribbling kind of way, when I'm investigating the face as much as I'm trying to replicate it, you do get a lot of marks that you didn't intend for. I mean, I'm getting them now because of the charcoal is an odd shape, and as I change direction like that, then it's facing a different way, so it sort of stutters. So, which is okay. So I'm not really that bothered about it. I quite like the way that sometimes it does things that are unpredictable and not expected. I'm not trying to make any kind of photo replica of a face. It's not about that. It's never about that for me anyway. So sometimes drift towards that level of realism, but it's not really my thing. But having said that, it's whatever it is. It's kind of I'm switching now because of the awkwardness of the bend in it. But for some people, it would be the only outcome, but for me, it's one of the outcomes. It's kind of, sometimes it will go that way, intentionally or not. It just goes that way. Like I said this morning with the first one, portraits tend to have their own destiny, and that's not a pretentious thing. And what I'm saying there is that this destiny is all bound up with your response to the subject. It's not out of your control as such, but it is if you allow you're just simply to be a emotional response to something, which is what it's got to be. I mean, you've got to respond emotionally to a face, to another human, in order to capture a life force. So it is to some extent out of your control, although it's not out of your actual control. It's out of your objective control. This sort of idea that you know exactly what you're drawing, and you know exactly what the shape it should be, and all the rest of it, and how it should be finished. All that it should be out of that control, because that's not helping. All that's doing is just making copies of things, and the whole point of capturing a life force is that copying the face isn't creating or capturing a life force. So it should be out of your control. I talk about this sometimes when people say to me about drawing and talking. I like drawing and talking because I really am out of control. It's the creative conscience is primarily driving this. My emotional response to this is what's driving it, but my creative conscience is what's really in charge. It's not an objective thing that I'm rationalizing and thinking, oh, now I need to work on these tones and I work on that tones and progressively work, through a process. I'm not doing that. I never do that. So it's when I'm talking, it stops the brain from getting involved, and it's in fact I'm so used to doing it now, talking and drawing, that I do it when I'm not filming. And when people come to the studio and see me talking, they think I'm doing a live, but in fact what I'm doing is just talking through it. So it occupies the mind and stops the brain from getting involved and telling me, what I'm seeing is this and it should be like this. Because that's the big problem. When the brain tells you you're looking at, then that's when you're not going to get. You're only going to be copying something. That's the thing, and which is what a lot of people want anyway. So in that respect, I suppose it's a good thing. But we sharpen this charcoal. But not for me. I don't want to make copies of things. That's why I'm kind of anti execution. I'm not really technique orientated and things like that. The techniques that I've got and the skill that I've developed over the last few years are just a consequence of this, intention to capture the life force and respond. Like I said earlier, it's drawing for me is capturing what I see, driven by what I feel, which I think all drawing should be like that. But for a lot of people, it's not. It's something else. So, like I say, this face it's more like a portrait in a way. It could be an actress that's got a particular sharp jaw. It's not exactly an evil face, but I think she has got an evil look about it. I mean, whether it's the I think it's the eyes more than anything. So that's probably why I'm trying to get that sort of dark edges around the eyes. I'll tell you what, as well, with because of the nature of all of these, really, I suppose, there's an element of well, there definitely is strong shapes on, around the eyes and the lips and everything else really, and that lends itself to a more suggestion and implication approach, which is kind of, as you've heard me talk about this before, everything I do is really about that kind of thing. I'm more interested in that and suggesting. So sometimes I'll, I know what's happened to the charcoal. I think we've got a breakdown of the quality. See, that's the thing with, I've got to a certain point now where the charcoal is no longer charcoal. It's now a piece of wood. And once it gets to that point, you start to get it breaks down and becomes just a bit of wood. So it's partly because of the way I cook it. I don't cook it evenly because it's in a tin with lots of other pieces. So it doesn't cook. If it's in the middle of the crowd sort of thing, it doesn't cook evenly. So consequently, I get pieces that are not. Sorry, I'm just concentrating on this for a minute. I get pieces that are not consistent all the way through. Somebody asked me about this, and I quite like because they said about the consistency thing, and I quite like the inconsistency thing, because one of the things I'm aware of when I'm drawing is being present to what's happening, and I think if you're aware of the charcoal's doing a certain thing or whatever, it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you aware of at any minute the charcoal could suddenly break down and no longer make the marks that you want it to make. So I'm just concentrating again. But which is funny that because I say I like to talk when I'm drawing because it distracts the mind. The fact that sometimes I just have to apply all my concentration into one thing, whether it be getting the eyes just right or getting the tone right or whatever it might be, that tells you straight away how much the brain is important to drawing, and that it's not about the when you're doing this, and it's not about the known factor, the known aspect of it. Now, if it had been, I was applying some knowledge that I'd acquired, then maybe I wouldn't have to stop and concentrate on something, which is what you see. I mean, if you look at somebody who's doing a demonstration, and it's a process that they go through, and there's plenty of them. You've seen them. It's that problem. For me, that's the problem. I don't really want it to be a process. I want it to be a bit of a wild ride every time, and not quite certain of how it's going to work out. And and for me to have lots of happy accidents with the marks, because that's one of the things I was saying about the scribbling process being it results in marks that sometimes aren't predictable, aren't expected or predictable. I'm responding to what I'm seeing, but it doesn't mean to say that they're going to be predictable lines. I was thinking about the final one of these. Well, I don't think it'll be a final. I'll probably do a couple more yet. But the one of these is one of those typical, the head down kind of scarecrow thing with the hair straight down. It's all very black. And I'm thinking about certain artists that I know, how they plan all that out. I won't plan it, but that's what people do. And I think that that's how this one's going as well now. So it's going a bit, I'm not having much luck. I'll try another piece, a different piece. Hold on. I'll just sharpen this. I've got lots of pieces lined up, but I need to make some more. The other week I made loads. I've just gone through it all. Well, you've seen the amount of drawings I do. If you've seen my social media, you've seen the amount I do. So, I can go through a lot of charcoal and go through a lot of paper as well. If I do 6 of these today, it's going to be... but it's only I don't know if I said earlier, but it's only the cheap cartridge paper that I use. So I'm buying 250 sheets at a time. So that's going to last me probably a couple of months. I would have thought. Depends how busy I am with the lessons. Because I don't sell any of these, so I've got. You've probably seen the video with the 2000 in. So I don't do commissions, so it's just the lessons that sort of eats into the my supply. Mind you, if I wasn't doing lessons, I'd still be drawing all the time. So I don't know. I mean, I just do it, and this is not a really great piece either, but it's. And that other piece starts. I told you when you get a piece that will flow. This is not flowing. You can hear it scratching. This is not flowing like the other piece was before it broke down. And it's very rare that, as I say, I get a piece that's going to be that flows that well. So I will appreciate it when it happens. So, as you can see, the thing is now starting to sort of look right. Chin's a bit long. The chin needs to be a little bit up a little bit from there. Not that much, but you can see it wants to go up a little bit. The nose is probably a little bit too long, and the eyes are a little bit too small. But all of which is adjustable. It's not far off, actually. The one thing I said earlier about the evenness of tone, that piece is not good either, so I'll swap into another piece. No, that's even worse. So what's happening with that one? I'm going to use, I don't know if I talked about this when I started. On the other ones, you'll have seen me talking about this foam on a stick. So I'm going to, because that's what's just happened then. One of the things that happens with charcoal is that it can build up on the surface, right? And I've blown it off now. What you're doing when you get that kind of mottling effect there that came in that bit, I mean, I'm not really bothered that much about it, but sometimes you don't want that mottling. It looks like I've got a bad skin complexion, and I'm just removing it now with my foam on a stick. That's what I was going to tell you about. But when that happens, it's because there is charcoal left on the surface, and you're skipping over that and creating that mottled effect. So it's always good every now and again to blow off the residue of charcoal that's built up on the surface. But the foam on a stick thing is, I use it, as you can see, it kind of blends but doesn't blend. You don't get rid of the marks like you would with a stump. You don't get rid of the marks that you've made with the charcoal. The marks are still there. The strokes of the charcoal are still there, but it just takes off the surface. I use it sparingly. I'm not really a smooth, looking for smooth finish kind of guy. I'd rather it be uneven feel to the way that the tones are suggested or indicated. I'm not, because sometimes I quite like he's doing it now. I quite like the rawness of marks used to build up a tone. I like that. I'd rather that than it being a super smooth thing, But which is doing it now. I can see it doing it now. It's just a thing. As I said, I think it's my thing. I don't think it's how you should do it. I'm just thinking that I like the way I look, and that's another what I'm saying about being present, because the charcoal demands that I'm present to its performance. I'm also present to what it's doing, and if it does things that I like, regardless of what I intend it to do, then it's going to stay. There's a lot of that on there. That kind of thing that I like that when it does that, and this is the thing about doing it your way, because you can look at it and think, oh, it's gonna have to be like this, or I've seen so and so do it like this, but that's not you. That's the way they do it. So ideally, you want to be thinking about whether or not you like what's happening in front of you, if it's actually capturing the essence that you're trying to capture. It's down to you. That it's not really a case of however somebody else does it and trying to replicate the way they do it. It's not about that. In fact, if you try and do that, invariably you'll fail anyway. That's why I keep seeing these master copy things, that always just makes me wonder. I always think that it's a bit disrespectful to the people, the masters that they're copying. It's like, is it really just about technique? And what do you learn from copying somebody's technique? I'm not sure it's a thing you should do. I think you should observe and absorb and contemplate and let it seep in some way, but to copy it directly and think that you're going to in some way benefit from that, I'm not sure. But I say everybody does it, so probably I'm wrong. But I often am. It's not. That's my wishes. So it's. I think it's just a case of whether I actually think it's whether you like it or not. And I'm not really somebody. I can't remember, apart from Sargent and Zorn and the usuals. I can't remember current artist names. I'm not. They don't make that much of an impact, so we say. That's not me being arrogant or anything. I don't want them to make an impact. I think that's what it is. I don't want other people's work to have any kind of influence over me. I want to do my thing and judge it for what it is, rather than it being it looks like so and so's, or it feels like so and so's. That kind of thing. You see that a lot. You see a lot of artists that paint alike. I don't know if they intend to, but I think it comes from somewhere, probably from doing master copies or something. But there are a lot of people that do a particular style, for instance, and I don't know. I don't want to get there. I don't want to be there. A style similar to somebody else's. And the charcoal thing. You've got some serious people in the charcoal world. The Oliver Sins and the Zinn Lims and whoever else. John Farrell and all those sort of people. They're just serious charcoal artists, and that's not me. I mean, I love charcoal. I love drawing charcoal, but I don't want to be. I don't want to be like them. I want to be like me. That's how it should be. But as I said, there are lots of great charcoal artists out there. There are lots of great artists out there, and I think working with charcoal probably brings out the best, or should bring out the best in an artist. It's because you don't have to work at it. If you want to create a tone of a certain value, you don't have to be spending forever doing some kind of cross-hatching to get to meet that value. That's the thing. So I'm going to do the hat now, and I'm desperately trying to find something big enough to do this. Now, I'm on all the other hats. I'm not really put a lot of effort into it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it on this one either. But other than you can get the gist of it. I think that the hat scenario. I mean, if people talk to me about hair, a lot, drawing hair. How do you draw hair? I have no idea. I just draw hair, and I think that's one of the things. There is when you're doing something like this, there are, particularly when it's I don't know. Let's call it a speed thing. You've got a time limit to it. Then you've got to focus on what's important. Now, my thing of focusing what's important is because what's important is what's important, not because it makes it quicker to do. So things like hair and hats and anything that's kind of outside the focus for me is secondary. So it's kind of a supporting role. So if I put all the effort into the hat, I've got to equally have as much effort into that, So, but I don't have the time or the need to make the hat particularly detailed. I only have the need to make what's important detailed, which is not detailed, but right or focused or however you want to describe it. I only want to focus on one thing. So it's a kind of it's logical that I do the suggestional implication thing, because the suggestional implication thing is based on identifying what matters and drawing what matters and using that to kind of guide the viewer to whatever else it was involved in the portrait in the face. So and you see it a lot. You just look at anything that Sargent did and you'll see it all over Sargent's work. And part of that is doing that is literally focusing on what's important and just working on that. So it's a consequence of that, I suppose, and that way of working, that I do this thing of finding what's important and working on what's important, and everything else is kind of secondary. So it's a lot. It's because of that, really, and it's not to do with speed. Although the upside of it is that you end up working really quick because you're only focused. It's like hair. Sometimes hair is completely irrelevant. It's just there to encase the face. It's not always the main feature, the main event. So you don't put too much effort into it because it's going to take the focus away from what's really important. And in this case, it's the eyes. So the hat is exactly the same for me in this instance. It's exactly the same thing. It's not that important, even though you might think it is, but it's not. It's like, that's a hat. Fair enough, we got that. We understand, and that's it. It's not. It doesn't have to be every detail. This is back to the detail thing I was saying earlier about people get focused on detail so much that it becomes about the detail. And it's not about the detail. It's very rarely about the detail. It is if you're a particular kind of artist, if you want to, impress people with your technical ability, because that's more often than not what happens with people who are realist, hyper-realist and all that. It's just, wow, look at that. And people are oblivious to the psychological impact of hyper-realism and its ability to nullify the aesthetic functions, because you can't see past it's the same thing with contemporary art and size, because you can't see past the size, you can't see past the detail, you can't see past the amazing houndstooth rendering, you can't see past it. You can only see, and that's what hyperrealists do. They just they focus on that ability, that skill that they've developed, because that's all it is. It's just skill. People talk about it as art and talent and all that. I disagree. I don't think it is. I just think it's a great skill they've got. And it's something that I did, years ago. I mean, I was only sort of 14 when I was chucking an airbrush around and trying to make hyper-realistic drawings of cars and things. And that's when I was doing technical illustration and doing cut-opens of gearbox and stuff like that. And it's a different thing. The motives behind that is a different thing. But as I said, it is for me. I struggle with it because it's also skill based, and it sort of belies the creative element of it. It kind of belies the and undermines the importance of creativity. This ability to respond and capture which is essentially what portraits are all about: respond and capture. So I'm not sure how that works when you're doing some hyper realistic thing that started off as a tracing or a projection. But as I say, each their own. I'm not saying it's wrong or it's just not for me. So this is all sort of done, apart from the shouting, as they say, and just a bit of tonal balancing. One of the things that I talk about a lot on the courses is tonal balance, and I think it's one of the things that really is overlooked. It's not values. Values is important. It's another thing, but the balance between tones. And sometimes this impacts on everything. People talk about edges, for instance, and the balance between the edges of something when they meet. That's tonal balance. And then the balance between tones across the face. So it's not just the sort of localized tonal relationships. It's also across the face. So it doesn't look like there's the thing has a hole. That's probably what I'm trying to say, because we're drawing a hole, the face is a hole, the whole thing is a hole. It's a whole entity that we're considering. So the relationships between tones on this side are just as important on this side. You'll see that when people use. If I switch now to a darker charcoal, it will suddenly change the tonal balance, just as if I was to use white charcoal. It throws the whole thing out. You don't really know why it's doing it, but it gives it that kind of unreal feeling about it, and that's because it's throwing the tonal balance out. But as I said, people don't really talk. They just talk about values and relationships. But the relationships really is the balance. It's the balance between one tone and another, and whether it's locally or across the face. That's what you need to consider. Anyway, this is done really. I'm just going to sort of tidy things up a little bit, sharpen things up, make things a little bit darker where they need to be. Maybe put a few highlights into the eyes or whatever, but essentially it's done. Not one that's going to have a background on it either, by the looks of it. It doesn't want a background on it. The hat might have a little bit more shaping on it, but other than that, I don't know. I think it looks okay. I think it looks like it's got as I said earlier, this is the one thing about drawing these is that they look better when they're in this kind of jangly kind of, sort of random mark sort of stage. It's just because the if anything, that image is a bit too smooth. When the other ones we've done earlier, they're not as smooth. They're more craggy, and the charcoal. As I say, doing this with the charcoal does accentuate that cragginess. So, I'm probably not going to try and make it too smooth. Just go with the broken line thing and the occasional wrong mark. That's this kind of thing here. yeah, I'm going to leave it. Like I said in the other one, when it's caught the essence, stop. And it definitely caught her essence in that, I think. And so it's time to stop. Don't know what that is there, but that's a strange, too dark a mark that for there. So we'll make a mess of that one. That's what I'm saying about if the charcoal's not got a definite point on it, you don't know where the mark's going to land. And that's probably one of the downsides. If you notice, I very rarely sharpen the charcoal, so that's a problem. You end up with, when you've done a lot of dark tones, you end up with a strange, funny point on it. It's not too bad, but it's quite thick and chunky. So it's not. Without doing that, I'm not that accurate with the mark making. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll fish out a new one. I'm going to just take that out there. I'm going to find another one. The last one is going to be, the last one was going to be, but it looks like I'm going to do a couple more yet. What time is it? We'll be doing at least another 3. So it might be a record, I've never done any more than 5 drawings in a day. So it might be a record we're going for. But as I say, the next one it's just all charcoal. It's not really... and as I said, if somebody else might plan it more than me, but I'm just going to dive straight in and draw it. But it's definitely all charcoal and not much drawing. It's one of those kind of things. But yeah, stay tuned. I suppose that's all I can say, and we'll see how far we get doing these. If you want any of these references, by the way, just drop me a line and I'll send them. I'll send you to a link where they are on my website. Okay, right.